Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. The U's Defender was one of the newest ships in the human fleet. It was big and strong, built to handle the dangers of deep space. Jake had been captain of this ship for 2 years now. He was proud of his crew, and his ship out the bridge was quiet that morning. The crew was doing their normal work. They were checking systems and watching the stars. Space was peaceful here in the outer rim of the Kepler system. Many alien ships came through this area to trade goods. It was a safe place, or so everyone thought. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat at her station. She was the communications officer. Her job was to listen for messages from other ships. She was good at her work. Amy had been in the human fleet for 5 years. She knew how to use all the radio equipment. Amy was drinking her morning coffee when the emergency signal came through. The sound was loud and sharp. It cut through the quiet of the bridge like a knife. Everyone stopped what they were doing. They all knew what that sound meant. Someone was in trouble. "Commander Morrison, we have a distress signal," Amy said. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see she was worried. She quickly worked on her computer to find out more about the signal. "Where is it coming from?" Jake asked. He walked over to Amy's station. The rest of the bridge crew gathered around too. They all wanted to know what was happening. "It's from the edge of the system," Amy said. "The signal is weak. It's coming from a Zelani ship." She looked up at Jake. "Sir, it's the Bright Current. That's Elder Kethfer's merchant ship." Jake knew that name. The Zelani were good people. They were peaceful traders who had been friends with humans for 5 years. Elder Kethfer was one of their leaders. He had helped humans when they first joined the galactic community. He was a kind and gentle being. "What does the message say?" Jake asked. Amy worked on her computer some more. She was trying to clean up the signal. It was full of static and noise. Finally, she got it clear enough to understand. "Sir, they're under attack," Amy said. Her face was pale. "The Vorthik are attacking them." Everyone on the bridge went quiet. The Vorthik were bad news. They were raiders and slavers. They attacked peaceful ships and took prisoners. They would sell the prisoners as slaves on other worlds. The Vorthik were cruel and had no mercy. "How many Vorthik ships?" Jake asked. "The signal is breaking up," Amy said. "But I think I heard 17 ships, maybe more." Jake felt his heart sink. 17 Vorthik ships was a lot. The Bright Current was just a merchant ship. It had no weapons. It could not fight back against so many attackers. "Are there any other human ships in the area?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir," said Lieutenant Ben Rodriguez. He was the captain of the Lightning Strike, a smaller ship that traveled with the Defender. "My ship is ready to help. We also have the Ranger nearby. Captain Lisa Grant is in command of our patrol group." Jake nodded. 3 human ships against 17 Vorthik raiders. The odds were not good, but they could not just leave the Zelani to die. That was not the human way. "Amy, can you get Elder Kethfer on the radio?" Jake asked. Amy tried to reach the Zelani ship. After a few minutes, she got through. The signal was very weak and full of static, but they could hear the Elder's voice. He sounded scared and tired. "Human ships, this is Elder Kethfer of the Bright Current," the voice said. "We are under attack by Vorthik raiders. Our engines are damaged. We cannot escape." Jake took the radio. "Elder Kethfer, this is Commander Morrison of the U.E.'s Defender. We are coming to help you. How many people are on your ship?" 400 souls, the Elder said. "Many are younglings who have never seen their homeworld. Please, if you cannot, save us. At least tell their families what happened to them." The radio went quiet for a moment. Then they heard the sound of explosions in the background. The Vorthik were still attacking the Zelani ship. "We have maybe an hour before our life support fails," Elder Kethfer said. The Vorthik are playing with us. They are not trying to destroy us quickly. They want to take us alive. Jake knew why. Live prisoners were worth more money than dead ones. The Vorthik would sell the Zelani as slaves. The younglings would grow up in chains, never knowing freedom. Elder Kethver, we will not let that happen, Jake said. We are coming. Hold on as long as you can. The radio signal died. Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was watching him. They were waiting for orders. They all knew this was dangerous. The Vorthik had bigger ships and better weapons. But Jake also knew his crew. They were brave and skilled. They would not run away from a fight. Amy, contact Captain Grant and Captain Rodriguez, Jake said. Tell them we are going to help the Zelani. Ask them to join us. Amy sent the messages. Within minutes, both captains replied. They would help. Their crews had volunteered to fight, even knowing they might not come home. Set course for the bright current, Jake ordered. Maximum speed. The Defender turned and headed toward the battle. Its engines roared to life. The ship picked up speed as it raced through space. Behind it, the Lightning Strike and the Ranger followed. 3 human ships against 17 Vorthik raiders. As they traveled, Jake thought about the Zelani. They were good people who had shown kindness to humans. Now they needed help. Jake and his crew would do everything they could to save them, even if it meant fighting against impossible odds. The stars streaked past the ship's windows as they rushed toward the battle. Soon they would face the Vorthik. Jake hoped they would be ready. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace near the battle. What they saw made their blood run cold. The Zelani merchant ship Bright Current was floating in space like a broken toy. Its hull was torn open in many places. Air and debris were flowing. Out into the vacuum of space, dot around the dying ship, 17 Vorthik warships moved like sharks around wounded prey. The alien ships were dark and ugly. Their hulls were covered with spikes and weapon ports. They looked like they were made for war and destruction. Commander Jake Morrison stared at the scene through his ship's main screen. He had fought many battles before, but this was different. The Vorthik were not trying to destroy the Zelani ship quickly. They were playing with it. They would fire a few shots, then wait. Then they would fire again. Why aren't they finishing them off? Asked Lieutenant Amy Carter. Chief Engineer Danny Phillips looked at his instruments. He was studying the Vorthik ships and their energy patterns. They're keeping the ship alive on purpose, he said. They want the people inside to suffer. They want them to be scared before they capture them. Jake felt anger building inside him. He had heard stories about the Vorthik, but seeing their cruelty with his own eyes was different. These were not honorable warriors. They were monsters who enjoyed causing pain. Danny, what can you tell me about their ships? Jake asked. Danny looked at his computer screens. The Vorthik ships were bigger than the human ships. They had stronger shields and more powerful weapons. Their technology is more advanced than ours, Danny said. But I'm seeing something strange about their energy signatures. Navigator Susan Bell was tracking the movement of the Vorthik fleet. She pointed to the largest ship in the group. That's their command ship, she said. It's called the Bloodfang. The leader is probably on that one. The Bloodfang was twice the size of the Defender. Its hull was painted with red marks that looked like blood. Weapon ports covered its surface like angry eyes. It was a ship built to spread fear. Medical Officer Chris Martinez was preparing the sick bay for wounded. But he was also watching the life signs from the Zelani ship. I'm reading about 300 life signs, he said. They're getting weaker. The ship is running out of air. Jake knew they had to act fast. Every minute they waited, more Zelani would die. But rushing in without a plan would get everyone killed. Amy, try to contact the Vorthik command ship, Jake said. Amy sent a message to the Bloodfang. After a few minutes, a face appeared on the main screen. It was the most frightening thing Jake had ever seen. The Vorthic leader had dark gray skin and yellow eyes. His mouth was full of sharp teeth. Scars covered his face and head. "I am Warlord Zexther of the Bloodfang," the alien said. His voice was like grinding metal. "What do you want, human?" "I am Commander Morrison of the U-East Defender," Jake said. "We demand that you stop attacking the Zalani ship and leave this system." Warlord Zexther threw back his head and laughed. The sound was horrible, like metal being torn apart. "You demand," he said. "You are nothing but soft mammals from a weak world. I have heard of your kind. You are new to space. You know nothing of real power. The Zelani are under human protection." Jake said, "If you continue to attack them, we will stop you." "You will stop me?" Zexther laughed again. "Look around you, human. I have 17 ships. You have 3 small ones. My weapons can destroy your ships before you can even fire back." Jake looked at the Vorthic ships surrounding them. Zexther was right about the numbers. The human ships were outnumbered and outgunned. But Jake had something the Vorthic leader did not expect. "Maybe you should learn more about humans before you make threats," Jake said. Zexter's yellow eyes narrowed. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means we come from a world that tried to kill us every day," Jake said. "We survived ice ages and asteroid impacts. We climbed to the top of the food chain on a planet full of predators. We are not as soft as you think." "Pretty words," Zexter said, "but words will not save you. I will destroy your ships and take your crews as slaves. The Zelani will watch you die before I sell them to the mines." The connection ended. Zexter's face disappeared from the screen. Jake turned to his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. "Annie, you said there was something strange about their energy signatures," Jake said. "What did you mean?" "Their shields work differently than ours," Danny said. "They rotate through different frequencies. Most of the time, they're almost impossible to get through. But for a few milliseconds, they have weak spots. Can we hit those weak spots?" Jake asked. "Maybe," Danny said. "But we would need perfect timing. All 3 ships would have to fire at exactly the same moment." Jake nodded. It was a long shot, but it was their only chance. "Contact Captain Grant and Captain Rodriguez. Tell them about the shield frequencies. We need to coordinate our attack." While Amy sent the messages, Jake looked at the Zelani ship again. It was still venting atmosphere into space. The people inside were dying slowly. Jake made a promise to himself that he would save them, no matter what it cost. "Sir, we have replies from the other ships," Amy said. "They understand the plan. They're ready to follow your lead." Jake took a deep breath. In a few minutes, the battle would begin. He knew that some of his people might not survive, but they could not let the Vorthic continue their cruelty. "All hands, prepare for battle," Jake said over the ship's radio. "We're going to save the Zelani. We're going to show these raiders what happens when they attack innocent people." The human ships moved into position. The Vorthic ships turned to face them. Weapons on both sides began to charge up. The battle was about to begin. Jake looked at his crew one more time. They were scared, but they were ready. They knew what they had to do. They would fight for the innocent, no matter what the cost. The battle started with a flash of light that lit up the darkness of space. The Vorthic ships fired first. 17 ships sent their weapons toward the 3 human vessels. The aliens expected to destroy the human ships quickly and easily. First wave of enemy fire hit the defender hard. The ship shook and alarms rang out across the bridge. Lights flickered and sparks flew from damaged systems. But the ship kept flying. It kept fighting. "Damage report. Commander Jake Morrison called out. "Hull breach on Deck 7. Chief Engineer Danny Phillips said, "We've lost 2 weapon ports, but the main systems are still working." Jake was surprised. The Vorthic weapons were powerful. That first attack should have crippled his ship, but the Defender was still in the fight. The ship was built tough, like everything humans made. On the lightning strike, Captain Ben Rodriguez was dealing with his own problems. His smaller ship had taken heavy damage, but his crew was working hard to fix what they could. They sealed holes in the hull and rerouted power to damaged systems. "We're still here," Rodriguez said over the radio. "We're still fighting." Admiral Lisa Grant, commanding the Ranger, was watching the battle unfold. She saw something that made her smile. The Vorthic ships were confused. They had hit the human ships with enough firepower to destroy most vessels. But all 3 human ships were still fighting. "They don't understand," Grant said to her crew. "They think we build our ships like they do. They don't know we come from a world that tried to kill us every day. The human ships were built differently than alien ships. Earth was a dangerous planet. Earthquakes, storms, and asteroid impacts were common. So humans built everything to survive the worst conditions. Their ships could take damage that would destroy other vessels. Pilot Ryan Tucker led a group of small fighter ships from the Defender. His job was to attack the Vorthic ships and draw their fire away from the main battle. It was a dangerous job, but Tucker was good at it. Tucker's fighters moved in ways that confused the Vorthic. They used pieces of broken ships and asteroids to hide behind. They would pop out, fire their weapons, then disappear again. The Vorthic had never seen fighting like this. "These humans fight like animals," one Vorthic captain said over the radio. "They have no honor." But Tucker and his pilots were not fighting without honor. They were fighting to save lives. They were using every trick they knew to stay alive and help their friends. Back on the Defender, Weapons Officer Kelly Stone was doing something amazing. She was hitting Vorthic ships with incredible accuracy. Her weapon crews were tracking and hitting targets that should have been impossible to hit. "How is she doing that?" a Vorthic gunner asked his captain. The Vorthic did not understand. Humans had evolved as hunters on Earth. They had learned to track animals that were fast and clever. This skill made them very good at predicting where targets would be. Kelly could see the patterns in how the Vorthic ships moved. She could guess where they would be in a few seconds. Her crews fired their weapons at empty space, but when the shots arrived, enemy ships were there waiting. "Direct hit on the enemy cruiser," Kelly reported. "Their shields are down to 60%. Danny Phillips was working on his plan to break through the Vorthic shields. He had studied their energy patterns and found the weak spots. Now he needed to time the attack perfectly. "All ships, listen carefully," Danny said over the radio. "Their shields have a weakness. For half a second every 30 seconds, there's a gap we can hit, but we all have to fire at exactly the same time." The 3 human ships began to work together. They synchronized their weapons and waited for the right moment. Danny watched his instruments carefully. The timing had to be perfect. "Wait for it," Danny said. "Almost there, now." All 3 human ships fired at the same moment. Their weapons hit the Vorthic shields just as the weak spots appeared. The concentrated firepower punched through the enemy defenses. The Vorthic command ship Bloodfang shook under the impact. Warlord Zexter was thrown from his chair. Alarms sounded throughout his ship. "Impossible," Zexter roared. "How did they get through our shields?" His crew scrambled to understand what had happened. They had never seen anyone break through their shields before. It was supposed to be impossible. "Sir, they somehow timed their attack perfectly," his weapons officer reported. "They hit us during the frequency rotation." Zexter could not believe what he was hearing. The humans had figured out his shield technology in just a few minutes of fighting. No one had ever done that before. The battle was turning. The human ships were proving tougher than expected. Their crews were working in conditions that would have killed most aliens. When the lightning strike lost life support on 3 decks, the human crew put on spacesuits and kept working. "Sir, we're getting reports from all over the ship," Rodriguez said over the radio. "My people are working in vacuum, in radiation, in temperatures that would freeze most beings. But they're keeping us in the fight," Jake Morrison smiled. This was what made humans special. They came from a world that was always trying to kill them. They had learned to survive anything. They had become the ultimate survivors. "All ships, continue the attack," Jake ordered. "Show them what Deathworlders can do." The human ships pressed their attack. They used their toughness and their clever tactics to fight ships that were bigger and stronger. But the Vorthek were learning that bigger and stronger did not always win out in space. The battle raged on. The humans were outnumbered, but they were not outfought. They were showing the galaxy what happened when you threatened innocent people. In front of humans, the Vorthek were about to learn a hard lesson about the species from Earth. The tide of battle was changing. The human ships had damaged several Vorthek vessels, but the enemy still had more ships. The Bloodfang was hurt, but still fighting. Warlord Zexther was getting angry and desperate. "Focus all fire on the human." "Command ship," Zexther ordered. "I want that ship destroyed now." 10 Vorthek ships turned their weapons on the defender. The human ship was hit by a wall of energy that lit up space like a small sun. The ship's shields failed completely. Hull. Plating melted and twisted under the intense heat. "We're in trouble," Chief Engineer Danny Phillips said. "Main power is down. Life support is failing on half the ship." Commander Jake Morrison looked around his damaged bridge. Smoke filled the air. Several of his crew were hurt. But they were all still working. They were all still fighting. "Can you get the engines back online?" Jake asked. "Give me 5 minutes," Danny said. He ran off the bridge to work on the damaged systems. While Danny worked on repairs, the other human ships tried to protect the defender. Captain Ben Rodriguez moved his ship Lightning Strike between the defender and the Vorthek fleet. He took hit after hit, but he kept his ship in position. "Rodriguez, get out of there," Jake said over the radio. "You're taking too much damage." "Sorry, Commander," Rodriguez replied. "My crew voted. We're staying here until your ship is fixed." The Lightning Strike was getting torn apart, but its crew would not retreat. They were buying time for their friends with their own lives. Admiral Lisa Grant saw what was happening. She made a decision that would change everything. "All ships, target the Bloodfang's engines," she ordered. "We're going to disable that ship and board it." "Board it?" Jake asked. "Admiral, that's suicide." "Maybe," Grant said, "but we need to end this fight. And I want to have a talk with Warlord Zexther." The 3 human ships concentrated their fire on the Bloodfang's engine section. The coordinated attack damaged the alien ship's ability to move. The massive warship began to drift in space, unable to escape. "Danny, I need power for the boarding pods," Jake said over the radio. "You've got it," Danny replied. "But the ship won't last much longer. Whatever you're planning, do it fast." Jake turned to his security chief, Sergeant Tony Walsh. Walsh was a tough man who had served in the human military for 15 years. He was exactly the kind of person you wanted leading a boarding party. "Walsh, pick your best people," Jake said. "We're going onto that ship." Walsh smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Yes, sir. How many prisoners do you want me to bring back?" "Just the Warlord," Jake said. The rest of his crew made their choice when they decided to be slavers. The human boarding. Pods launched from the Defender. They were small armored vehicles designed to carry soldiers from one ship to another. The Vorthik tried to shoot them down, but the pods were fast and hard to hit. Tony Walsh led 12 human soldiers into the Bloodfang. They cut through the ship's hull with plasma torches and entered the alien vessel. The inside of the ship was dark and filled with poisonous gas that the Vorthik breathed. "Put on your masks," Walsh ordered. "This air will kill us in minutes." The human soldiers moved through the ship's corridors. They wore special suits that protected them from the toxic atmosphere. The Vorthik had designed their ship to be deadly to boarding parties, but humans were used to dangerous environments. The Vorthik crew fought back, but they were not prepared for human soldiers. Walsh and his team moved through the ship like they owned it. They used their weapons with deadly precision. They worked together like a pack of wolves. "These humans are monsters," one Vorthik soldier said to his friend. "They fight like demons." But the humans were not demons. They were just very good at what they did. Earth had taught them to be survivors. They had learned to fight in any environment, under any conditions. While the boarding party was fighting inside the Bloodfang, the space battle continued. The other human ships were rescuing the Zelani survivors. Medical Officer Chris Martinez was working to save as many alien lives as possible. "We've got about 200 survivors," Martinez reported. "They're in bad shape, but most will live." Communication. Specialist Nicole Davis was doing something clever. She was listening to the Vorthik radio messages and jamming their communications. But she was also adding her own messages to confuse the enemy. "Attention all Vorthik ships," Nicole said in perfect alien language. "This is Human Fleet Command. We know everything about your operations. We know where your bases are. We know where your slaves are kept. Surrender now or face the consequences." The Vorthik were shocked to hear a human speaking their language perfectly. They had thought their communications were secret. Now they realized the humans could understand everything they said. On the Bloodfang, Tony Walsh and his team reached the bridge. They found Warlord Zexther trying to destroy his ship's computer files. The alien leader was desperate to hide evidence of his crimes. "Stop right there," Walsh said, pointing his weapon at the warlord. Zexther turned around. His yellow eyes were full of hate and fear. "You cannot defeat me, human. I am Warlord Zexther. I have conquered 100 worlds." "Not anymore," Walsh said. "You're coming with us." The alien leader tried to fight, but Walsh's soldiers were too quick. They stunned him with their weapons and carried him back to the boarding pod. The most feared raider in the galaxy was now their prisoner. Back on the Defender, Admiral Grant was waiting for the boarding party to return. She had questions for the warlord. She wanted to know about his slave operations and where the captured people were being held. "Bring him to my ready room," Grant ordered when the boarding party returned. Warlord Zexther was brought before the human admiral. He expected to be treated like a prisoner of war. He expected to be ransomed or exchanged. But Grant had other plans. "You are guilty of slavery, murder, and countless other crimes," Grant said. "You have caused pain and suffering across the galaxy." "I am a warrior," Zexther replied. "I follow the ancient laws of conquest. You soft humans do not understand real power." Grant looked at the alien with cold eyes. "You're right. We don't understand your kind of power. We understand justice." The warlord laughed. "Justice? You will trade me back to my people for a good price. That is how these things work." "No," Grant said simply. "That's not how we do things. You prey on the innocent. You turn people into slaves. You destroy families. There is no mercy for creatures like you." For the first time, Zexther looked worried. "What do you mean?" "I mean you will never hurt anyone again," Grant said. "Your days of causing pain are over." The warlord realized that humans were different from other species. They did not follow The same rules. They had their own justice. And it was final dot. The battle was over. The Vorthik fleet was defeated. Their leader was captured. The Zelani were safe. But this was just the beginning of humanity's war against the slave trade. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The story was told in 1,000 different ways, but the message was always the same. The humans had defeated the Vorthik fleet. They had saved the Zelani. They had shown no mercy. To slavers, Elder Kethfor of the Zelani stood before the Galactic Council 3 weeks after the battle. The old alien's voice was strong as he told the story of what the humans had done. They came for us when no one else would, Kethfor said. 3 small ships against 17 warships. They knew they might die, but they came anyway. They saved 400 innocent lives. The council chamber was full of representatives from dozens of alien species. They listened carefully to the elders' words. Many of them had suffered under Vorthik raids. They had lost friends and family to the slavers. The humans fought like no one we have ever seen, Kethfor continued. They did not fight for glory or profit. They fought for justice. They fought because it was the right thing to do. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Grant was meeting with Human Fleet Command. The leaders wanted to know everything about the battle. They wanted to understand how 3 ships had defeated 17. It wasn't about the ships, Grant explained. It was about the people. Our crews are tough because Earth made them tough. Our world taught us to survive anything. Intelligence Officer Matt Harrison had been studying the information they took from the Vorthik ships. What he found was worse than anyone had imagined. The slave trade was huge. It reached across half the galaxy. They have processing centers on 47 worlds, Harrison reported. We estimate they're holding over 2 million slaves. Men, women, children from dozens of species. Grant felt sick when she heard the numbers. 2 million people living in chains. 2 million families torn apart. The Vorthik had been operating for centuries, hidden by fear and corruption. What do we do about it? Asked Fleet Admiral Robert Clark, the highest-ranking human officer. We shut them down, Grant said. All of them. Every slave camp, every processing center, every ship. We free every single person they're holding. Clark nodded. You'll have whatever resources you need. This is now our top priority. The operation was called Broken Chain. Human ships spread across Vorthik space, hunting down slave operations. They were joined by ships from other species, who had been inspired by the human example. Captain Ben Rodriguez had survived the battle, though his ship Lightning Strike was badly damaged. He volunteered for the most dangerous missions. His crew followed him without question. We started something out there, Rodriguez told his crew. Now we have to finish it. The humans hit the slave camps hard and fast. They did not give the Vorthik time to kill their prisoners or move them to other locations. Human soldiers stormed the camps and freed everyone they could find. The rescued slaves told horrible stories. They had been worked to death in mines and factories. They had been beaten and starved. Many had given up hope of ever being free. I thought I would die in that place, said a young alien girl who had been freed from a mining camp. Then the humans came. They gave me back my life. The Vorthik Empire began to fall apart. Without their slave labor, their economy collapsed. Without their fear tactics, their military started to desert. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was crumbling. Some Vorthik tried to fight back. They attacked human colonies and trade ships. But they found that attacking humans was a mistake. Every attack brought more human ships. Every act of violence was met with swift and final justice. They never learn, Commander Jake Morrison said as he watched another Vorthik fleet surrender. They think they can scare us into backing down. They don't understand that we get stronger when we're threatened. The war against the slave trade took 6 months. When it was over, the Vorthic Empire was gone. The slave camps were empty. 2 million people had been freed and returned to their families. The galaxy was different now. The smaller species that had been victims for so long were standing up for themselves. They had learned from the human example. They had learned that sometimes you had to fight for what was right. The Galactic Council passed new laws about slavery. They created a joint military force to hunt down any remaining slavers. They made it clear that the slave trade would never be tolerated again. The humans changed everything, said Councillor Valtar of the Andromedan Republic. They showed us that we didn't have to accept cruelty. We could fight back. On Earth, people celebrated the victory, but they also understood the cost. 47 human soldiers had died in the war against the slavers. Hundreds more had been wounded. 3 ships had been lost. They died for strangers, said President Maria Santos at the memorial service. They died for people they had never met on worlds they had never seen. They died because they believed that freedom was worth fighting for. The memorial was attended by representatives from dozens of alien species. They came to honor the humans who had given their lives to end the slave trade. They came to say thank you. Elder Kethfer was there too. The old Zilani had traveled across the galaxy to attend the service. He spoke for all the species that had been freed. Your people are called Deathworlders, he said. We used to think that meant you were dangerous. Now we know it means you are protectors. You use your strength to defend the weak. You use your courage to fight for justice. The memorial service ended with a moment of silence. The galaxy was quiet as billions of beings remembered the humans who had died to make them free. In the years that followed, the story of the human response to the Zilani distress call became legend. It was told in schools and sung in songs. It was remembered as the day the galaxy learned that the Deathworlders were not monsters. They were heroes. The message had spread across the stars, carried by the grateful voices of those who had been saved. The galaxy knew now that there were beings who would fight for justice, no matter the cost. The galaxy knew that the humans would always answer a call for help. And somewhere in the darkness of space, those who preyed on the innocent learned to fear the sound of human engines. They learned to fear the species that showed no mercy to slavers. The Deathworlders had spoken. The galaxy had listened. And the universe was a better place because of it.